Hello guys, welcome to Netlabs Hub. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can configure FortiGate firewall to block application, especially social media. Hello guys, welcome again to this particular lab at Netlabs Hub, whereby I'm going to show you how to block social media using application control in FortiGate firewall in GNS3. This is the topology that I'm utilizing. So this is my FortiGate FGT. So I'm connected to this NAT as my source of internet. Then this is just a local area LAN. So after this, we will be able to simulate and know if applications are blocked or not. So I haven't configured anything on this firewall, and the firewall is going to be the center stage of this particular tutorial. So let me go back. You click here to access the firewall. You click on the console, but for my case, I had already accessed the firewall. So this is it. So the first thing, you enter the username, admin. Then for FortiGate, by default, you are allowed to set a password. So that is it. Once you set a password, I'm going to assign the interfaces. Port 2, that is facing the LAN from this subnet, that is the first IP address for that. Then port 1, that is the wide area network port, that's the one port. It is going to work on DHCP, meaning it is going to get an IP address automatic from the internet. So to configure the system, you go to the global configuration under subsystem interface mode. So system, then interface. After there, we edit port 1. We set alias, that is the 1. Then set the role of the port, that is the 1. Then after there, we set the mode under which it will function, whether static or DHCP. So in this situation, you first set the mode before you set the IP. If you are going to set the mode in static, you set it static before you assign the IP. If it is going to function in DHCP, you do so. So after that, it will get IP address automatic from the internet. Then set allow access ping. So once you are done, we can move to the next port. Edit port 2. Set alias, that is LAN port. Set role, that is LAN. Then set mode static. Then set IP 192.168.11.1/24. Then set allow access. I'm going to use this port to access the firewall in the browser. So you have to give it this capability. So once you are done, we configure the host name. It's very key. Set host name. So once we do that, immediately we write the word end. It will automatically save. So if you want to show that, you can show. Show means it will show you the configuration. This is the credentials for port 2. Then port 1 is above. This is for port 1. So if we want to prove that the interfaces have IP addresses, we can use diagonalize IP address list. The moment we do that, you can see that port 1 has gotten 192.168.122, which is a public IP. Then port 2 is assigned statically. Then other ports are for FortiLink and so that is it. If we want to prove we can reach the internet, we can ping that IP or the gateway. You see it's pinging. So it's okay. So the next thing, I'm going to access the firewall in the browser so that directly I can go to show you how to configure the FortiGate firewall to block the applications or the social media platforms. So the steps is that I'm going to create the static route so that any packet within this particular LAN that has no predefined destination, it will be forwarded through this particular port, that is to the internet. Then next step, you will create a firewall policy to allow the LAN network to access the internet so that while I'm on this particular admin, I can be able to ping the internet. That's what you should master there. So, and that one will only work if I have configured the firewall policy. So I'll access this one, this admin. Then under that, the first thing you check whether it has an IP address, because without an IP address, you see it is having 192.168.11.20. Let's ping the gateway, the IP address assigned to the interface where admin is connected. You see it's pinging. So we can type here that IP address, then access it's wrong, it is 11 not 1. So I have accessed the firewall in the browser, then log in. You don't save. You begin. Okay. Click OK and then press here. So the first thing, we verify the interfaces. You come and verify the interfaces here. You see, this is the LAN port. Enable the HCP server on that port, then it starts with the 25, no big deal. So the second thing, I'm going to create the static route so that when the packet is not known where to go, it will go through the internet. That is, this one means the entire LAN network, and then the gateway, it will be 192.168.122.1. Then that gateway is dynamic, so there is no need of entering it. So that's okay. You create that. Once you create that, you create the firewall policy. Let me now show you something. While at this admin, ping 888. You see, 888.8.8.8 is the DNS address for Google. I cannot reach the internet. You see? So, but immediately I'm going to configure this rule, this firewall policy. I'll be able to ping that particular address. That is the Google DNS. So you come to the policy and objects, and then this is, you give it the name. then incoming interface is LAN, then outgoing is 1, then the source is all, then destination is all, then service is all. Once you do that, you pick on all sessions. We are going to log all traffic for all sessions, then enable. So once I do that, then I come back to this particular, our case before. You see it's now pinging. So it is the power of this firewall policy that now has informed the firewall that now do not block this particular packets, allow them to access the internet. You see, it's okay. We can ping google.com. Sometimes it can, resolving the name is difficult, but at least you can see it's pinging the address. So we can try any other 5.11.11.5. You see it's pinging. This is the default gateway. This is the IP address for DNS for this particular company called Liquid Telecom. You can see. So once we do this, we'll go to security profile down here, then choose application control, then we create new policy here, so that you give it block SM, that is social media. Then on this we'll just pick this, then block. You see this social media, we block that. The moment we block that, we save. We save. So I'm going to apply this particular security profile to the rule that I have just created. This is where I'm going to apply the rule, policy and objects, firewall policy, then edit this. Down here, you'll notice something. Down on this rule, there is this security profiles. We've got antivirus, web filter, DNS filter, and then application control. The moment you uncheck that, you select the rule that you had created, then you save. You see, the rule now has applied. So we can check. You can check there. Then we try to, maybe Facebook. You see, I'm not accessing Facebook because I have blocked it using that particular application control policy. You see, the server is not found. So that's how you block applications, especially social media platforms. So to summarize on this, you assign interfaces on the you assign IP address on the interfaces. Once you assign the interface with the IPs, then you create a static route to allow unknown packets to the internet. Then the next thing, you create the firewall policy that will give a LAN network access to the internet. Then you create application control policy, and then you apply to the firewall policy that you've just created. Once you apply, any computer or any user accessing those particular blocked applications will not be able to access. So thank you so much for following this particular lab for today. Feel free to subscribe at Netlabs Hub, and also don't forget to watch the playlist on YouTube on mastering FortiGate firewall in GNS3. Thank you.